Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, CEOs, and thought leaders about systematizing your business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create tailor-made documentation and custom systems for businesses so they can thrive. John, did you know that businesses need well-documented processes and procedures in order to be able to expand and grow?
For sure. Yes, I agree 100%.
That's right. And yes, that's what business success is all about. So if you would like to communicate to us, it's info@bizsuccesscg.com or check our website at bizsuccesscg.com. And with that, I am very honored to introduce our guest today. John, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, Dee, thanks so much for having me. I'm John Corcoran. I am the co-founder of Rise25, which is a company that helps B2B businesses to get ROI, clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships using podcasts and content marketing. I started a podcast about 11 years ago, 2010. My business partner, Jeremy, he started around the same time as well. And we've been doing it for about 20 years between the two of us. Absolutely love it. I started when I was practicing law. Obviously don't practice law anymore because eventually it was a pathway out of practicing law. And today I consider myself first and foremost an evangelist for the medium, for you using tools like a podcast to build great connections with amazing people that you might not otherwise have a conversation with. And so happy to be here.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk today about podcasts. So obviously this podcast has been launched and Rise25 is helping with that. And we already mentioned in other podcasts about how easy it is to be a client of yours, how easy it is, the onboarding system, etc. when Jeremy interviewed me. So I would like to talk about that in terms of how easy you make it for people to create a podcast. Because you are the evangelist. I'm a believer and I believe in podcasts and I believe how helpful it is. So let's first of all talk about building relationship through podcasts or even in general, networking and building relationships and then how podcasts play into it. And then we'll talk about what does it take in order to start your own podcast?
Sure. Yeah. And we're recording this at an interesting time because this is April of 2021. We're about a year into this global pandemic where everyone's been kind of shut in their house and unable to go to networking events, go to lunches, go to conferences, go to coffee with people. Traditionally, that's the way that people network. That's the way that they meet new prospective clients and referral partners and collaborators. And we've been unable to do that. Even before the pandemic started, I would argue that a lot of times that kind of networking was not very scientific. You'd go to like a Chamber of Commerce meeting or conference or something. You might end up being there for 2 hours. You're stuck talking to the same person for 45 minutes who's not a great fit. And you're looking for, a needle in a haystack and don't end up finding the right person. Now you compare that to using a tool like podcasts as your networking tool, as a tool for business development, for referral marketing, for strategic partnerships. It's up to you who you feature. And so you can decide and you can feature your best referral partners, your champions, the people that already know, like, and trust you, that have referred business to you, your strategic partners. You can start with them because those are the ones who already like you, who already have sent you business. That's a great place to start. That's likely going to lead to more business for you. And then from there, you can get introductions to other people in their network because you have their people in their network. You come and feature them on your show as well. And it's just a wonderful win-win way to connect with other people that are maybe 1 degree or 2 degrees removed from you. And so that's why I'm a big advocate of it. I consider it much more deliberative, much more intentional way of growing your network with the types of people that you want to connect with, you want to get to know.
Absolutely, because the relationship, just as you said, just they will just grow because you're also helping the other person you're interviewing. Because, for instance, this podcast, I'm going to then put it on my social media. I'm going to send it to all of my newsletter subscribers. I'm going to do all of that. And then those people will learn about you, right? So that's a way to increase your network. You'll do the same. So then the people that you send it on, your social media, your connections, etc., will learn about me. And then that's why it's a win-win situation. And you learn so much about the other person, right? When you're doing those interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. You
so
do.
Give me an example of that. Give me an example of when you, if you have a story about learning about somebody or helping somebody through the action of doing an interview.
Oh, I mean, from the very first interview onward to today, I have found that it's just an amazing way to learn about people's challenges, what's holding them back, what they're focused on in their business. My very first interview, which wasn't even really for a podcast, was just I was practicing law at the time. I call myself a recovering attorney now, but at the time I was practicing law, and I had a good client who came to me for a tiny matter. Just they wanted me to write a lease on a spare bedroom in their house. These days, you just throw it on Verbo or Airbnb or something like that. And so I did it for him. And then when it was over, it turns out he was a serial entrepreneur. He started a bunch of companies. And so I said, hey, can I have 20 minutes of your time? I'd love to interview you over the phone. I will record it and publish it to the web. I didn't even know how to do those things, but I figured I would figure it out. And, it was great. It was fun. I learned a lot about him. And when it was over, he asked me, he said, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that. Can you help me with some more legal projects? I've got a couple other things that maybe you could work on. And I said, yeah, absolutely, and then afterwards, I'm no dummy. So I was like, well, that worked pretty well. Maybe I should keep on doing this. And so, flash forward 11 years later, I've just continued to do it to this point. So, it's just such a wonderful opportunity to generate content, to promote the person that you're talking to, give them exposure, because as you said, you're sharing it across your social channels, but at the same time, learn about what sorts of challenges they have and look for ways in which you can help them. And that might mean, if you're a business coach, it might mean that you help them with business coaching, but it might go beyond that. It might mean that, they're looking for somewhere to go on vacation in Florida next month. And it turns out your sister-in-law lives in Florida, and you can get some recommendations from her, and you can follow up after the fact and send those recommendations over to them. And even little things like that are the way that you build trust, you build a stronger relationship, and that will materialize in the form of referrals and people becoming clients later, even if not initially. Some cases, yes, maybe people become a client right away, but you'll build trust with them, and then it'll materialize in more referrals and more business down the line.
Absolutely. So, John, what are the biggest challenges that business owners face that they face when they want to start a podcast?
There's a lot of different things. So people worry about, what should I talk about? They worry about how to set everything up. It's a very technically, it is very convoluted. I couldn't even tell you all the different steps.
Right.
Because I honestly, I've never done everything all myself, because frankly, it's not the best use of my time to go through and do all of those things, nor, and we say this to our clients all the time, it's not the best of your time to go and do those things.
And I agree 100%. I mean, I can tell you, it's like, we're talking about a pandemic, and yes, we are in April 2021, but go back to April 2020. One of the things that I started doing at that time is doing a lot of webinars, because I could see my clients went through, there was so much uncertainty. We didn't know where things are going to go, etc. So I did a lot of webinars, just free advice to business owners to help them do better and to succeed. But as things started opening up, it started dwindling. The amount of people that will register for the webinars would start dwindling down, because people went back to working as opposed to being in front of at home all the time. And I had this idea, okay, I want to take it to a step further, because I want to create my own podcast. Because during the course of doing those webinars, I basically teamed up with other professionals. So we did it together. And I thought it was interesting. It was very inspiring, but I want to have my own podcast, because I also like to listen to podcasts. And I thought it'll be great to have my own. But what I was facing is like, where do I start? I mean, I don't know how to do a podcast. What does it mean? Like, what do you do? And when I started working with Rise25, with both you and Jeremy, you just made it so simple because all I need to do is to do an interview. You even told me what microphone to buy and all of that. And all I need to do is upload the recording to a website and you just take it from there and then it gets published and it looks super professional. So I think that that's the main barrier, but you're right. It's also like who to interview, like where am I going to find guests, etc. But you have a process for that as well. So tell us about that.
Yeah, how to reach out, who you should be focusing on. I've talked to lots of people that just interview the influencers in their space or famous best-selling authors, things like that. They don't interview their clients. They don't interview referral partners or what types of referral partners. A lot of people don't know who's an ideal referral partner for them. So a big part of it is that also figuring out who's the right person for you, the right types of referral partner for you, how you should reach out to them, at what frequency. And even things boil down to just I talked to a client earlier this week who was really struggling with just doing the outreach, getting people on the schedule in a way that was time efficient and that didn't drain their energy. So using things like an online scheduler so that you don't have to go back and forth scheduling these things and it falls through the cracks, or giving them all the answers that they need so that you're not going back and forth answering every different question that people have about being on a podcast. Those things that seem simple, they add up to additional time and they drain your energy and they take time away from what you should be focusing on, what you should be spending your time on, which is having great conversations through a podcast with someone who is an ideal referral partner or client or strategic partner. And that's really what your energy and your time should be focused on. And by the way, I should mention that, I made every mistake in the book over 11 years of doing this. And about 5 or 6 years ago, one year I was intending to have a weekly podcast, but I only put out 7 episodes. And I went to Jeremy. Jeremy had just become business partners around that time. And we were focused on doing events primarily. But I came to him and I said, I know you do a really good job of putting out consistent content. I'm not. It's slowing me down. What can I do? And he stripped it down to its bare bones. He helped me to rebuild my whole process. And the very next year, I put out 52 episodes instead of 7. And that is the name of the game, because that's 52 high caliber, high quality people that I had giving conversations with, where I'm giving them exposure. And then thanks to the principle of reciprocity, those people then want to repay the favor. And so that made all the difference in the world. And so as a result of that, that's the approach that we take with our clients. And anytime I'm talking to anyone about a podcast, especially if they have a B2B business, if you have a profitable, especially B2B business, but if you have a profitable business, your time is better spent focusing on what can't be delegated, which is your personality, which is you having a great conversation with a great person. That can't be delegated. That's what you should focus your energy on. Let us handle all of the other pieces.
Absolutely. And after all, we're talking about systems, right? This is a system simplified podcast. And having a system for how to do podcasts is super important. And that's basically what you have. You created this foolproof system on how to create a podcast, all the way from how to identify your ideal prospects to how to get them scheduled, how to reach out, including email templates and everything that you can just have to follow. And then all you need to do is interview. So that is definitely a great system. And I agree with that.
Thank you.
I heard from some people that they feel uncomfortable being in front of a camera or talking, like the idea that thousands of people are going to listen to them makes them uncomfortable. So what do you tell those people?
Yeah, that's a great point. The funny thing is, a lot of times it's the more intellectual, cerebral clients that say that struggle with that idea, or they say like, I'm not sure what questions I should ask this person. And oftentimes there are people that have no trouble speaking. They have no trouble having a conversation. And so you just need to get in the rhythm of it and realize that it's just a conversation. You can have a conversation with a client and with a referral partner or a peer or someone in a topic that is related to what you do. You can do this. It's just fine. And if you struggle with it, typically we help with what types of questions you could start with. And then eventually you get into a rhythm, you find certain questions you want to ask. But I say that podcasting is great for introverts because, one, it's a one-on-one conversation. It's not like there's a huge audience of 300 people watching. That's not the case at all. It's just a one-on-one conversation. And we've all been on Zoom for the last year. So it's just another one-on-one conversation over Zoom with someone, and you happen to be recording it. And after the fact, it's going to be published. So you don't really need to worry about it that much. And there's tons of content in the world. So, as long as you're not, sharing something that is truly embarrassing to yourself, which I'm sure is not the case, you don't have to worry about the content that you're putting out there. It's not like everyone in the world is paying that close attention.
That's right. I agree. So let me tell you the story. I don't know if you know how I met Jeremy and Rise25. So I was actually interviewed by Jeremy because Jeremy does the podcast for Sweet Process, which is a software that I use a lot with my clients. And Owen, the owner of the co-founder of Sweet Process, asked me to do a podcast, and we scheduled this interview, and that's how I met Jeremy. And then I said, Jeremy, what do you do? Because he had the same poster as you have behind you of Rise25, and he told me, and that's how we started that relationship of also referrals back and forth, and now producing the podcast. But I never asked him, what is Rise25? Like, why Rise25?
The name? Yeah. So the funny thing is, so there's two stories that I say to that. One story is that, we really like the term a rising tide floats all boats. And so, we looked for rise.com was taken. We tried rise1.com was taken. Rise2.com was taken. No, but the real reason that the Rise25, the reason we like that is because we all have 24 hours in a day, and we all complain about only having 24 hours in the day in order to get everything done. We always have this constant feeling of we're not getting everything done that we want to get done. And for us, it's about the network. It's always been about relationships. It's about, your clients, your referral partners, the network. And so for us, we wanted that idea of the 25th hour. Your network is your 25th hour. It's an additional hour in the day, and building your network, building your relationships is what's going to have a big impact on your business. So that's why we came up with this. Rising tide lifts all boats, and also your network is the 25th hour in the day.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's tell our listeners, if they want to talk to you and ask more questions about Rise25 and how to work with you, how should they contact you?
Sure. They can email us at support@rise25media.com. You can email us right there. I'm John at rise25media.com. If you want to email me, I'm happy to respond or reach out on LinkedIn, John Corcoran on LinkedIn, and happy to chat with anyone who wants to talk about podcasting. It's such a blessing. It's something that I really love doing. I've been doing it for 11 years now. I can't imagine quitting because I know it would be so much more time consuming to not have a podcast than to have a podcast if you want to build relationships with great people. And so that's why I keep on doing it. I love, being able to meet interesting people and have a great conversation with them. And if you enjoy doing that, then you'll love doing a podcast. If you do it right and you make sure to get yourself out of the way and have someone else handle all the details so you can focus on the fun stuff.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
So in closing, let's talk about something that not a lot of people know about you, or maybe they will after they look at your website, is that you actually worked in the White House.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Cool.
So tell us the inside story, one inside story of how is it to work in the White House?
Oh, it's an amazing experience. So I worked there when I was very young. First, I interned in the speechwriting office when I was 21 years old. Then I went back, graduated from college, and then came back, and I was a writer in presidential letters and messages, which is kind of like a second-tier speechwriter. You kind of write a lot of the stuff, video scripts and things that the proclamations that the speechwriters didn't want to write. And it was an amazing experience because you're at the White House. I mean, there literally were times when I would put my pen down, get up and go to the restroom, and I'd be walking down the hallway, and then there'd be like 50 Secret Service agents who stopped me and said, "I'm sorry, sir, you can't go any further." And there would be the president of the United States having a heated discussion behind closed doors. There's no press around or anything like that, with another foreign leader, like, president of China or something like that. Just heated discussion, with two translators right up in there, and imagine 50 Secret Service, US Secret Service, and then 50 of their security service all standing, waiting for the two to complete this conversation. And me standing here thinking, I really have to pee. I really have to pee. I'd like to go to the bathroom. Can you please hurry up this conversation? So it's just a bizarre combination of unbelievable experiences. And also, just being privileged to be around amazing people. The caliber of people that were drawn to working there in the Clinton years was amazing. Many of them are judges now, or they've become CEOs of large companies, or authors, or members of Congress. Just really impressive caliber of people. And so it really forced me to raise my game. I ended up going back to law school after that experience because I found I would lose arguments to people who had been to law school. And I thought, okay, I'll go to law school just so that I can educate myself a little bit further. But yeah, a really, really cool experience. I'm glad to have done it, and glad to be doing what I'm doing now. I mean, it was a good job for a younger person because you don't get paid very much and it tends to be long hours. So I'm glad that I did it. And now that I have young kids, I'm not doing it.
Got it. Okay. Well, great story. Definitely. Thanks. Thank you. And thank you, John, for being a guest on this podcast. It was a great conversation. And I definitely encourage our listeners to reach out to you and find out more about Rise25.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.